Lock the doors, turn on the lights, and keep a stuffed animal handy, because these movies will chill you to the bone. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 movies you shouldn't watch alone. For this list, we'll be exploring movies that are just so scary, terrifying, disturbing, or unsettling that you really shouldn't be watching them on your own. We'll be including picks from our previous lists on the topic, while also not forgetting some more recent films that really stood out. Number 20, The Shining.
I'm not gonna hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence.
There may be no horror greater than the one that originates in your own family. Jack Torrance arrives at the Overlook Hotel with his wife and son to begin his job as the hotel's caretaker. But soon, strange happenings begin to take place within the halls of the inn, and within Jack's mind too. Originally welcoming the solitude as a way to break his writer's block, Jack is slowly driven mad by the hotel's curse and attempts to take the lives of his own family.
Here's Johnny!
This classic Stanley Kubrick adaptation of Stephen King's Landmark is filled with moments that have become part of pop culture. Number 19, Green Room. Talk about a bad gig. This A24 survival horror flick starts out as an easygoing movie about a punk band trying to land a show, but quickly goes south when they're booked to play at a skinhead bar. When the band witnesses a murder in the green room, they suddenly must fight for their lives against psychopathic bar staff that are intent on concealing any evidence. After several escape attempts, the band is quickly dwindling in members and ammunition while facing an increasingly grim fate. Watch it! With terrifying and brutal fight scenes and villains that would make anyone shiver, no one should be alone in the green room.
Let him bleed. Later is better for time of death.
Number 18, Raw. Some horror films require group viewings to mediate the jump scares and terrifying scenery. Others, like the French film Raw, gross you out so much that the experience of watching it must be shared. When the young vegetarian Justine begins her first semester at veterinary school, she's forced to eat rabbit kidneys, which jumpstarts an insatiable craving for human flesh. The urge appears to run in the family, with Justine and her sister Alexia soon feasting on strangers, fellow students, and eventually, each other. The film's stark contrast between sexual curiosity, arousal, and straight-up cannibalism make for quite the uncomfortable blend. Any takers? Number 17. It Follows. This film may have you rethinking your last one-night stand. When her date doesn't go as planned, the protagonist Jay is told she has inherited a curse via sexual intercourse, and will be followed by an entity that only she can see until she's able to pass on the curse. Not scary enough for you yet? Well, the entity can also shapeshift into Jay's friends and make surprise attacks whenever it pleases. It Follows brought in audiences with its unique premise and blew them away with tooth-rattling scares, grotesque deformed villains, and a stunning score. Watch this one alone, and your next date will never be the same. Number 16, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Please, God.
This is God.
You'd truly have to be sick and twisted to try and watch this film all by yourself. With sleep and dreaming at the core of this iconic slasher film's scares, there's almost no other film that can make you feel as vulnerable and fearing for your safety after watching it as A Nightmare on Elm Street. Whether it's in the bathtub, in the class, or from the comfort of your bedroom, the vengeful spirit known as Freddy Krueger is coming for you, blade fingers and all. While this film has spawned countless sequels, it's the original Krueger that remains in the annals of slasher horror for its subconscious and lasting effect on viewers. Sleeping just hasn't been the same since. Number 15, It.
Is that your favorite?
Uh-huh.
Mine too.
Based on the iconic 1986 Stephen King novel, this lively horror flick is without a doubt one of the best films of the modern era, but also one of the scariest. The horrifying attack on poor little Georgie in the opening scene truly sets the tone for 2 hours of relentless clown jump scares and bone-chilling imagery and sound effects. As our ragtag group of friends seek justice for Bill's little brother in the cursed town of Derry, Maine, it becomes clear that they weren't ready for the ancient cosmic shapeshifter that is Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Much like the Losers Club, you'll want plenty of friends around to hold you close for the duration of it.
Welcome to the Losers Club!
Number 14. The Babadook.
His name is Mr. Babadook, and this is his book.
Have you ever heard the story of the Babadook? Well, neither had this troubled single mother, and upon reading the cursed book to her son, she unleashed its hellish torment on both their lives. The son's overactive imagination leads the mother to initially disbelieve the Babadook exists. However, she believes its incessant stalking causes the family to experience increasing psychological trauma. One cannot escape the Babadook once a person becomes aware of his existence.
I said the Babadook.
The Babadook isn't real, Samuel. It's just something you've made up in your stupid little head.
I just didn't want you to let it in!
The film gets its notoriety from the lack of conventional jump scares and the masterful employment of raw horror elements. Exactly the kind of movie you should watch in a big group, with the lights on and the basement door locked. Number 13. The Strangers. There are few things more terrifying than masked intruders, because they usually arrive with some type of sharp object and they always mean business. In this horror flick, Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler star as two lovers on the road to a romantic getaway in Brian Bertino's film. But things get ugly after a failed proposal. Oh, and when strangers appear with masks on their heads. Creepy sounds, cryptic messages, and a trio of psychos ready to slice and dice the surprised couple are just a few of the elements that make this a terrifying watch. Just try watching it alone. You'll spend more time watching the window. Number 12. VHS 2. Found footage films are never something you should be venturing into all alone, and this one is no different. An anthology film built from several VHS tapes found in the first movie, VHS 2 chronicles the search for a missing college student, told through 5 different and equally morbid vignettes. While many films on this list hold back the scares and horror for a big ending, this film is balls to the wall in its approach. If extreme violence, graphic gore, and some of the most terrifying aliens ever put to screen don't faze you, you might just be able to survive this one. But please, for your own sanity, don't go it alone. Number 11. Drag Me to Hell. This movie reminds us to always be mindful of the ones we do wrong. Christine's picture-perfect life is disrupted by a desperate elderly lady who needs an extension on her home loan. When Christine denies her in hopes of impressing her boss, the old woman hexes her with a curse that will torment her mercilessly before damning her to an eternity in hell.
Shame.
Spending the next 3 days of her life dealing with evil spirits and trying to ward off the curse for good, she faces such terrifying demonic depictions in the mortal world, we shudder to think what awaits her on the other side. Number 10. Funny Games. It's all fun and games until someone starts breaking eggs and kills the family dog. In Mikhail Haneke's original 1997 film, a wealthy Austrian family goes on vacation, only to be interrupted by 2 enthusiastic guests. And that's when shit hits the fan. The intruders challenge the horrified family to a game of life and death. And it doesn't go so well for Papa George, young Georgie, and Mama Anna. As you might expect, Haneke's 2007 shot-for-shot American remake was equally dark and made people rethink their morning breakfast.
Mrs. Thompson sent me. She's cooking and she ran out of eggs and asked if he could help her out.
Of course. How many does she need?
Number 9. Paranormal Activity. This found footage flick made audiences wet their pants and blame loved ones for spilling soda in the theater. When Katie and Mika move into a San Diego pad, a collection of odd events inspire them to set up cameras. What happens? Well, Katie stares at her sleeping husband for 2 hours and later gets hurled out of the room. To make matters worse, the ghosts get all kinky and start biting poor Katie. What happens next will shock you, and it does involve blood. Number 8. Wreck. It all started when Jennifer hurls all over her mother. This real-time Barcelona-shot horror hit theaters in 2007 and featured a most unusual night shift for a TV reporter and her cameraman. As a sickness takes hold of the community, another shocking truth is revealed, and, well, it's not a good one. Nobody wants to be snatched up and taken to hell. At least, it's not on our bucket list.
Señora.
Number 7. The Conjuring. You know that you probably picked the wrong home to move into when your dog mysteriously dies during your first few days, and spirits begin to express a desire to, end you. Such was the case in The Conjuring, where Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga star as real-life ghost investigators, attempting to stop a doll from committing bloody murder. You know the drill: exorcisms, horrible screams, slow insanity. But James Wan's film offered much more than the usual genre shenanigans. It made people paranoid and afraid of being slaughtered by a smiley yet torn-up doll named Annabelle. Number 6. The Grudge. Based on the 2002 Japanese film, Ju-on, this Sam Raimi-produced flick reminded everybody that a horrific death filled with rage or sorrow does not signify the end. With a non-linear plot, The Grudge chronicles numerous stories of turbulent deaths and the cycle of horror that ensues. Sarah Michelle Gellar stars as an American exchange student who comes face to face with the seemingly unfaithful departed. The concept of The Grudge is inherently shocking, but the visuals are simply on another level. Watch this movie alone and you will regret it, because you'll accidentally claw up your own couch. Number 5. The Ring.
7 days.
4 words: Samara and the Television. This remake of a 1998 Japanese film left an imprint on all who watched, as the very premise highlighted the horror that comes from watching a mysterious video of Red Rum. Naomi Watts stars as a protective mother who attempts to break the cycle of death by solving a murder case, and thus saving everybody from lonely VHS deaths. The Ring was the first of several Japanese adaptations in modern times, and responsible for inspiring lonely moviegoers to call their best friends and whisper 7 days into the phone, thus ruining their Friday night plans. Who watches The Ring alone? Don't do that, Mojoholics. Just don't. Number 4. The Witch. Sometimes it's the things you don't see that can terrify you the most. Set in 1630s New England, a young family is banished from a Puritan colony and now live on a farm near a secluded forest. Tragedy strikes when their young baby disappears, and the blame is placed on their daughter Thomasin. With one suspicious death after another, the family's trust in one another is destroyed, with Mother Catherine certain her daughter is engaged in witchcraft.
She plays a curse on me!
They conspire against me.
Thomasin is a witch!
Nay, I'll not hear it.
While the scares themselves are fewer in number here, the specific imagery and historical setting make for a uniquely unsettling watch, one that is not recommended for solo viewing. Seriously, who knew breastfeeding could be this messed up? Number 3. Hereditary. The horror genre has experienced an incredible resurgence in the last few years, and this next film is maybe the best example of why. After the death of her mother, Annie Graham begins to unravel increasingly disturbing secrets about her family and their connections to a demon named Paimon. This supernatural force is unrelenting in its quest to find a host, which comes at an enormous cost to Annie. Unlike the majority of horror films, director Ari Aster doesn't rely on jump scares or over-the-top gore, and instead crafts a slow-building and deeply disturbing story that chills the audience more than these effects ever could.
I felt his presence in the room. Annie, this is real.
That being said, it's best to gather some family members around for this thrill ride.
What the hell?
Number 2. The Blair Witch Project. As one of the most successful indie films of all time, and a defining film of the found footage genre, The Blair Witch Project was a national mystery upon release. After immediately acknowledging the disappearance of 3 students, the filmmakers spun a dramatic tale of a Maryland witch, and a brilliant internet marketing campaign led audiences to believe that the film was a genuine documentary. The frightening ending has since become iconic, and made us believe that anything is possible when it comes to the supernatural.
I am so sorry for everything that has happened.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are some honorable mentions.
I see dead people.
In your dreams? While you're awake?
recreo, niña.
Descarrilacho! Pushka, pushka.
Pushla.
What are you doing? Thanks.
Not quite at the end yet. Almost there though. Just be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Alright, back to business. Number 1. The Exorcist. It's the ultimate horror film that has it all. Accomplished director? Yes. Legendary actor? Yes. Absolutely terrifying imagery? Does a spinning demon-possessed head qualify?
Damien!
Amen.
With a historical backstory of religion and archaeology, it wasn't difficult to embrace the story of an aging priest out to defeat an old supernatural enemy. The Exorcist wasn't just unbelievably scary, it was also nominated for 10 Academy Awards, thus proving the power of efficient filmmaking. It's truly an event to watch The Exorcist, especially with those who are easily scared.
Did you do that?
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.